Okay, so hello, my dear grade students. So for today, we are going to talk about reproductive system. So to start, I know that when you reach this stage, puberty, there are lots of drastic changes that takes place in your body. And these changes are so overwhelming. In fact, you have a hard time adjusting. And as time passes by, you learn to make the necessary adjustment, and you were able to accept these changes. So the different secondary sex characteristics are very evident, and this brought a lot of physical, emotional, and social changes in your life. That's why this is one of the most talked about stage in the life of a person. So in puberty, this is very important because this is very significant in reproductive system. So for this lesson, you are to describe the parts of and glands of the reproductive system and their function. Explain the role of the hormones involved in the female and male reproductive system. And in the end, you are to explain the occurrence of different diseases of the reproductive system and make an output that demonstrate ways on preventing these diseases. Okay? So generally, this is the function of the male and female reproductive system. So I want you to look at this one. Here you will see the different function of male and female reproductive system. So for female, the production of female sex cells. And it is the reception of the sperm cell. So the one that receives the sperm. And female also nurtures the development and provides nourishment for the young organism. So after the fertilization, and if there is a successful implantation, so the responsibility of the female is to carry and nourish the young in her womb. On the male, of course, the same with female, production of the male sex cell. He deposits the sperm into the vagina of the female during intercourse or during copulation, and provides the medium by which sperm cell can reach the mature egg. So before the sperm is deposited into the vagina, uh, the male reproductive sees to it that it's it is nourished and it can successfully swim in the environment of the female. Okay, so since the last time that you talk about reproductive system was grade 5, just to recall the parts of the male reproductive. So I am giving you a minute in order for you to check if you are still aware of the parts of the male reproductive system. Okay, so let's check if your answer is correct. Okay, so this is the parts of the male reproductive system. So you have here the penis, the testicle, plural, testis singular. You have the epididymis, vas deferens. You have here the prostate gland, seminal vesicle, and of course, urethra. Okay, so what are the roles of this part in the sperm cell before it will be deposited to the vagina of the female? And speaking of sperm, before we proceed on to the parts, so this is the part of the sperm cell. So sperm cell has three parts. You have the head, where it contains the nucleus, the middle part or the midpiece, where mitochondria is, and the tail, of course. Okay, so what do you think is the role of the head in the sperm cell? Okay, so it stores the enzymes needed by the sperm to penetrate an egg cell during fertilization. Okay, so it gives the enzyme needed in order for the sperm to successfully penetrate on the egg cell. Okay, it also contains the DNA of the male because there is where nucleus is. For midpiece, you'll find the mitochondria. So what do you think is the role of the mitochondria? Okay, good. So when we say mitochondria, it has something to do with the powerhouse of the cell. So this supplies the energy needed in order for the sperm to propel. Okay, and the tail, of course. So this is a powerful flagellum that whips back and forth, enabling it to move. So for a sperm to move back and forth, to swim successfully inside, it should be, of course, supported by the tail. Okay, so with the parts presented a while ago, just for us to have an idea of how each one perform its role, let's watch this one. So this will explain the pathway of the sperm as it is released from the urethra. Okay, so from that short video, you now understand the pathway of the sperm. So in the video, the different parts were mentioned and the role they play in the sperm cell. Okay, so to clarify, so first we have the testes. This is the primary reproductive organ of the male, and this is responsible for making sperm. So take note, primary reproductive organ. The penis is not the primary reproductive organ, but the testes. And again, inside this testes, you'll find a coiled tube called seminiferous tubules, and this is responsible for producing sperm. Okay? So from the video also, you see the different ducts or accessory ducts. So these ducts store and transport sperm from the testes to the outside of the body. So take note, store and transport sperm. So what are the accessory ducts? There are actually four. So you have the epididymis, vas deferens, ejaculatory duct, and urethra. So first, for the epididymis, you have, this is a 6-meter coiled tube that serves as the storage of sperm. And then, for the extension of the epididymis towards urethra, it will travel in the vas deferens. And then that ejaculatory duct is the merger of the vas deferens and seminal vesicle. And urethra is the one that extends from the urinary bladder to the end of the penis. And it carries urine from the bladder out of the body and carries semen, that has sperm, during ejaculation. Okay, so these are the accessory ducts for transporting and storing sperm. Other than this, we also have accessory glands. So this part produces secretion. So they produce fluids that mixes with the sperm that serves, that gives something to the sperm before it will be ejected during ejaculation. Okay, and what are these accessory glands? We have seminal vesicle, prostate gland, and bulboretral gland or Cowper's gland. Okay, so if you are to check here the secretion, so first they secrete alkaline fluid. So why alkaline? So take note, if it is alkaline, it's basic or base. Considering that the environment of the female is acidic, to neutralize that environment, an alkaline is needed. Then we have this, it also has a fructose that gives energy to the sperm. Okay. And then we have for the prostate gland, this activates the swimming movement of the sperm. And for bulboretral gland, this neutralizes the acidity of the urethra and lubricates the end of the penis. So you are thinking that a sperm is like, it will go to a bottle, wherein before moving into the bottle, it will be armed with a lot of materials. So nourishment, providing of energy is very important now for sperm to successfully reach the egg cell inside the female's body. Okay, so secretion, these secretions are very important. Okay, then we have for the external, of course, we have scrotum and penis. So the external sac of skin that contains the testes. Okay, it has partition to separate two testes, and it has smooth muscle that contract or relax in response to a change in the temperature. So take note that it should be 1 to 3 degrees below the body temperature. And for penis, this is the organ of copulation. It contains erectile tissue that becomes enlarged and rigid. So during sexual excitation, the blood runs into it that makes it rigid and enlarged. Okay? So this is the organ of copulation. So again, these are the parts of the male reproductive system. Okay? Then for the sperm, of course, for the delivery, it was mentioned that during ejaculation, no, the sperm, semen in particular. So semen is a mixture of the sperm and the other fluids that were given by the accessory glands. So it will be expelled from the body of the male during ejaculation. And for every ejaculation, the male released 3.5 milliliters of semen, and that contains 300 to 400 million of sperm cell. Actually, in a drop, there are 5 to 10 millions of sperm. Okay. Next, we have for the female. So you look at the diagram here, and again, I want you to answer, label the parts, try to recall when you were in grade 5, what have you learned about the parts of the female reproductive system? So I'm giving you 20 seconds to answer this. Okay, so let's see if your guess is correct. Okay, so these are the parts of the female reproductive system. So unlike for male reproductive, you see that it's fewer, okay? So we have ovary. Female has 2 ovaries. And then we have the uterus, we have the fallopian tube, we have the cervix, and we have the vagina. Okay, so let's see the function of these parts. So let's have first the ovary. So the primary sex organ of female is ovary. So take note of that. Vagina is not the primary sex organ, but it's the ovary because this is the one that produces the egg cell. Also, it's the one that secretes 2 important hormones, estrogen and progesterone. So we'll see the role of these 2 hormones in the reproductive cycle or reproduction cycle. Okay, so in the fallopian tube, this is the passageway of egg from the ovary to the uterus. And at the end of this part, you'll see a finger-like structure that holds the egg cell once it is released from the ovary, and we call it as fimbriae. We also have for uterus, of course, this is the place where the fertilized egg develops. It's a hollow organ with muscular wall, thick muscular walls, and this is the appropriate environment for the fetus. Vagina is the one that receives the penis. This is the organ for copulation, and this also serves as the birth canal. And cervix is a narrow structure connecting the lower end of the uterus and the upper portion of the vagina. Okay, so these are the parts and functions of the female reproductive system. So for the egg production, if male has this, for every ejaculation, 3.5 milliliters of semen containing 300 to 400 million of sperm. In female, it's different because all females are born with millions of eggs, but as she enters puberty, only 400,000, it has 400,000 immature eggs, and it can only release 300 to 500 mature egg during her lifetime. So it's so few, okay? And that is released about every 28 days in an adult female body. So in the reproduction cycle, we'll understand when is the time that the ovary will release its mature egg. Okay? So after learning about the parts and function, it is but just that we have to, of course, consider the different diseases of the male and female reproductive system. But we have to focus on the STDs, or the sexually transmitted disease. What do you mean by STD? Okay, so STDs are diseases that are transmitted when there is sexual contact or sexual intercourse. And these are the common examples. There are actually lots of examples of diseases or STDs, but I consider few here, like chlamydia, genital herpes, syphilis, and gonorrhea. If you are to check the symptoms of these STDs, you'll find that the common symptoms are having abnormal discharge, bleeding, of course, painful urination, swollen glands, and abnormal pus discharge. Okay, so once a person has an intercourse or contact with a person having this disease, so this disease will transfer. Okay? And when a person has this, of course, it should be tested and treated at once, of course, with antibiotics. So you need to consult, you need to seek medical attention. And of course, having this, of course, you are to avoid sexual activity until these STDs were already healed. Okay? So for acquired immune deficiency syndrome, where this one will be the focus of the task that we are going to complete, because AIDS nowadays is one of the major killer disease in the country. So we have to give importance, we have to emphasize this STD, and of course, considering the status of the AIDS case in the country, I think this is the high time for us to do something, of course, to increase awareness. Specifically, we see that the victim is getting younger and younger. So we have to deal with this. Okay. So there are other diseases that you are familiar with, such as prostate cancer, cervical cancer, and other examples of cancer. And when we talk of cancer, of course, the only treatment that we have is radiation therapy. Okay, we also have epididymitis or epididymitis. This is the inflammation of the epididymis. And the male infertility. Male infertility stem from the lost sperm count. So if a male has this lost sperm count, meaning normally he did not reach this 300 to 400 million per ejaculation. So with that number, lower than that, it's actually described, no, that a female can be described as infertile. So you have to seek medical attention still and check for possible ways on how to increase sperm count. Okay. For female, this is so common. They experience dysmenorrhea, oligomenorrhea, amenorrhea, wherein this has something to do with their menstrual cycle. So severe pain is dysmenorrhea. Amenorrhea is absence of menstruation, and oligomenorrhea is an abnormal and frequent menstrual period. Sterility, unable to reproduce due to lack of fallopian tube, and vaginitis is infection of the vagina. And there are a lot more. No? Okay, so you may, of course, read these samples of disorders and diseases in the book, and in the internet, there are other examples of these disorders and diseases. Now, in keeping your reproductive system healthy for male, what are the routine or practice that you are employing in order for you to keep your reproductive system healthy? Okay, first, to prevent hernias. Are you familiar with hernias? So hernias is, in Tagalog term, is tuslos. So this is actually the pushing through of the organ in a weak part, specifically in the groin area. And that is, of course, rooted from carrying or lifting heavy object. That's why when you are lifting heavy objects, you are reminded to be very careful, and of course wear something and not to prevent your reproductive organ, a reproductive system. So it's important to thoroughly clean the external organs daily during a shower or bath. Okay, and also it should be protected. Now, for athletes who are into activities, strenuous activities, it's a must that you have your protector or supporter. And of course, tight clothing should be avoided because this irritate or cause pain in the groin area. So tight jeans increase the testicular problem. Okay, so these are some tips that you can apply in order to keep your reproductive system healthy. But of course, others are doing other things such as exercising and eating balanced diet. That will always be essential, okay, to prevent not only, to maintain not only the reproductive system healthy, but other system as well, okay? For female, so during the menstrual period, cleanliness, hygiene is so important. Hormonal changes may cause the skin and the hair to become oily and your body perspire heavily. And with that, you have to use mild soap to wash the external organ. Okay. And then when the menstrual flow mixes with the air, of course, it creates an undesirable odor or slight odor. So it's important to change your sanitary pads or tampons. Okay. And then we have using of spray, deodorants, Dutches. Deodorant tampons are not necessary. In fact, it may be harmful because they may create infection. So if normal body odors are not eliminated through washing, you have to seek medical attention. And of course, for athlete, okay, same as with male, you have to wear protective clothing. Okay, so of course, other than this, still we have to think of the kind of food that we are eating, the lifestyle that we have, and still check if you are into exercising. Okay? Because in this time of pandemic, our movement is so limited. So it is still, we have to think of other things or other means or other ways on how we can keep our body healthy. Okay, so that ends our discussion. So I hope you learned something. So see you in our next lesson. Thank you. Bye-bye.